You're listening to Finish the Damn Book, the podcast for procrastinators. Susie Schaefer, known as the Book Doula, works with authors and publishing professionals to turn stories into movements that make an impact.
Welcome to this episode of Finish the Damn Book. I'm your host, Susie Schaefer. My guest today is Kimberly Spencer, a 16-plus year entrepreneur, subconscious success strategist, Amazon #1 bestseller, TEDx speaker, health junkie, freedom lover, queen to my king, 2 times boy mom, and unsinkable optimist. For as long as she can remember, Kimberly has obsessed with stories of women who go from rags to riches, from fear to success, and vice versa. Her driving question: what separates those who cave into their circumstances while others climb to the top? A former Miss Congeniality powered by green juice, Italian espresso, and gallons of glitter, Kimberly is proud to have helped hundreds of leaders build their empires through breaking through their self-limiting beliefs, revolutionize their relationships, and rewrite their stories of self-sabotage into a story of success, all in all areas of their life. That is a mouthful. Welcome, Kimberly.
Thanks so much for having me, Susie. I'm so honored to be here with you. I just realized I was like, I need to add that I'm a girl mom too now.
Oh, well, there you go. We got to update the bio.
The postpartum period has been a minute.
Yes, interesting too. I actually just talked to somebody who was writing a book about postpartum. So there you have it, right?
Exactly. The synchronicities never end.
I know it's a hot topic, and I don't know if you know. I mean, this week that we're recording this, we just had the second half of the eclipse portal. We just had a full blood moon. We're in retrograde. Mercury is in retrograde. It's a wacky week. Have you felt it?
I have felt it big time. I have not been able to sleep for the past 2 nights. And I thought that could have something to do with my daughter's birthday was yesterday, which is why I can never forget your birthday because it's the day after. And that because she is such, every birth that I've had has really been an initiation to another level of me. And I say that like my first son ignited my spark. My second son, oh my God, he is an intuitive healer. I was pregnant with him when my dad passed, and there was something that happened in the ether because that boy was born with a gift of empathy that is beyond this world. And then my daughter, she really allowed me to remember who the hell I am. Mm-hmm. And like that, there's such power and permission in that. And when I realized this whole season of the equinox and the blood moon and like it is all in perfect timing. I'm like, girlfriend, of course your birthday is like the day after the blood moon, like as I'm like this big initiation moment. Cause she taught me so much about love, and she's only been on the planet for a year. So.
Wow. That's amazing. Now, let me back up just a little bit so we can bring our listeners up to speed. You recently posted on LinkedIn about having some issues with KDP, and I responded, just how we connected.
Yeah.
Love social media. But since then, your issues have been resolved. Thank goodness, right? But aside from technical issues, were there things that you found frustrating or emotionally challenging when you wrote and published your book?
So Make Every Podcast Want You was my book baby that it was kind of like my, I call it the death tax. I looked at 2024, and in 2021, I had a lot of family members pass. And after going through all the grief, I looked at what would if I had 1 year left, what would I deeply regret not becoming? And I realized, I said, it would be a solo best-selling author. Like I had published a multi-author book way back in 2016 when my business was first getting off the ground called The Start. It hit the bestseller. But it was an interview-based book, so I didn't feel like I really wrote it. And I've always prided myself, having been a former screenwriter, having always like been a writer, like writing is just in my blood. And that moment of realizing, oh my gosh, I need to write this book. And I had to have the book make sense. It had to correlate to my company. I have a second company called Communication Queens. That's our consulting agency where we specialize with guest podcasting. And I said, I have to have this make sense to the business in order for me to write it, especially with two young boys at the time. And I wrote the book and got halfway through with the schedule that I was on and realized I wasn't going to make it at the deadline if I didn't put, the pedal to the metal. So I immediately booked an Airbnb for 3 days, or I think it was 4 days, 4 days, 3 nights, and told my husband, you got the kids. I'm locking myself in a tiny house and I'm going to finish the damn book. And that's what I did. I had the Post-it notes. It was like a beautiful mind up in there, like with all the notes but I got about 20,000 words shy of finishing it. I said, I'm finishing it. And I found my editor who ended up being my publishing consultant and supporting me with formatting. And that was all a really easy and aligned decision once I had the courage to make the big, bold choices. What happened later was the struggle with 3 weeks before the book was to be released. I realized I got everything formatted. I went through everything with my publishing consultant, and I just checked in with my lawyers, and they're like, "Oh, did you get all the releases?" And I was like, "What?" And they're like, "Oh, well, you have a lot of client case studies," and I was like, "Oh my God, you're right. Like a book is a commercial entity." So I put pedal to the metal. I was hounding clients, podcasters, and I found a very interesting paradigm there. And this, first of all, that's one thing most people don't consider when finishing the damn book is the actual releases for the case studies, the people named in the book, unless it's like popular information and there's some gray area there, like our published information and is well known. The case studies have to you have to have some releases.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
So I had to get 32 releases.
Oh my goodness.
in 5 days. And I poured my whole heart and energy into it. And literally 30 of them said yes. One said, no, I'm not comfortable with the commercial entity of the release. And I was like, okay, that's like, we use your testimonial in our website and all that, but not in this. I said, that's fine. And another one just wanted to be anonymized. I did realize a very interesting paradigm. Some of the case studies with the very successful, like 8-9 figure business owners that I've worked with, they had no problem signing a release like that. It was some of the business owners that we worked with that are more in the startup phase where there's still those hints of perfectionism. And those were the ones that I had to chase, that were a little harder to get. And that was an interesting breakthrough in awareness. The other thing was we had a really hard and set deadline. I had a great team working on the book, working in our company with supporting the book launch and we had multiple launch events. We had a bestseller launch crew that was our number one goal was like, we are going to get this book to a bestseller. We had a book launch party that we were also doing that was the whole book was about the power of podcast guesting for your business. And so I wanted it to be a podcast party. My company, Communication Queens, which is our sister company to Crown Yourself, has been hosting podcast parties once a month for years. And so I said, we need to do a podcast party, and we made it like a book reading, a connection-based event. We had some top global podcasters come and just support. And I got to celebrate becoming a best-selling author in community, which is so much different than doing it and being like, I did it and here's my social media post. It was like we were all there with a we goal, not a me goal. And I think that there's something when you can make a win, like becoming a bestseller author, like writing a book, a we win, because you never do it alone. And I'm always the type of reader who I read the back page of the acknowledgments. I'm like, oh, who helped everyone? Like, who are the people? Because I think that there's so much value in recognizing that it's not just you as the author. Like, yes, you're putting your heart and soul into this book that you're creating. But beyond that, there's the support systems that have allowed you to do that. And they also, doing it together creates a beautiful interdependent moment where you also become, like I said in my TED Talk, that testimony for possibility. You become that so that there may be someone in that audience celebrating with you who wrote that Amazon review, or who liked your book, or who bought the book on the day, and they always wanted to become a best-selling author too, and they get to participate in that moment, and you get to be that reflection and that mirror of what's possible for them. And if you can, they can too. And that's such a powerful moment to turn your book launch into a we win instead of just a me win.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. Now, can you kind of explain to our listeners, what are your two companies? How do they work? And how does your book contribute to your success in each one of those companies?
So Crown Yourself, I've had for 10 years. I'm like, oh my gosh, we're on 10 years now. It's my high performance business coaching and mindset coaching practice. We leveraged NLP, hypnosis, timeline therapy, certified high performance coaching, my own Queen Bee business curriculum, and somatic breathwork and longevity to really work with leaders in creating holistic success so that they can venture forth from beyond their company and be the leader in every area of their life, the king or queen of their kingdom. And Communication Queens was the need in the marketplace because I started becoming back in 2020. We got stuck in Australia during COVID. And prior to that, my primary source of lead generation for my company had been live events. And I'm there. My husband's industry is shut down. We have a 3-year-old boy at the time. And we made the choice to stay. We're like, how long could this last? It ended up, we lived there for 2 years.
Wow.
But we were over there, and I was talking to my team, which was back then just 2 VAs. And I said, well, what can we do to generate new business? And podcast guesting was one of the things. At first, we thought doubling down on our own podcast. We've had the Crown Yourself podcast since 2019. And that was really good for pulling in clients and customers into our ecosystem who had been on the fence for a while. But for generating new business, I said, I need to talk to more people. And I have always been the believer that conversations create conversions. One of our KPIs in our company is how many conversations can you have? And so we started with we doubled down on conversations and then making them public. So a podcast interview is perfect for that. And within a few months, we generated $70,000 of new business revenue. And then it was over $250,000. And then I started becoming a podcast evangelist. I was like, oh my gosh, every business owner has to do this. So fast forward to 2022, we moved back from Australia. We faced a lot of death, and we moved back to support my mom, because in that year we lost my dad, my nana, and my aunt, which were her husband, her mom, and her sister. And so she came in to help me with the kids, and I came in to support her with the estates and getting her a buyout for her business. And I realized I was having a conversation with my social media manager, and she's like, your message is getting diluted. Like, Crown Yourself has always been mindset, leadership, and business. And you're all like talking podcast guesting all the time. And I said, okay, we need to separate this. I need to create a separate company. So in 2022, 2023, I birthed Communication Queens. And Communication Queens is our done for you agency, done with you agency. So we support our clients in their podcasting strategy, in their visibility strategy, and building out their ecosystem. It was a full end-to-end done for you agency. We since pivoted in 2024 during the launch of my book, or 2025 during the launch of my book, with having it be more a done with you agency, where we set our clients up for success. We help them build out the ecosystem. We help train their VAs and their team in the system to get repeatable podcast interviews that they can literally turn the dial up or turn the dial down. There were a lot of agency lessons that I learned in that business. But why the book? The book has supported my coaching business because it's positioned me as a leader in coaching and business. And so the first chapter is loaded with all the reasons from a business perspective as to why any entrepreneur should be going on as many podcasts that are aligned with their authority alignment strategy, that support them in getting onto podcasts that their avatar is listening to, your ideal customer is listening to, that also allow them to get on podcasts that support their angle in getting booked on shows that support their story so that they can attract a new, fresh audience that just builds that know, like, and trust factor because you have rapport of similar experiences. And so it positioned me as a business coach. It also positioned our agency as, oh my gosh, we need to work with you because there's so much information in the book that you can implement it yourself. There's also so much information in the book that a lot of people are like, I don't want to implement this myself. I would just want to go to Communication Queens where they already have the system set up and have them help me set up these systems so that I don't have to do it myself. And that's what we found, because typically the entrepreneurs and leaders and authors that we work for are around like the higher 7-figure range.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I love that you used your book as a dual purpose for both companies. It makes a lot of sense to do that. And, for any entrepreneurs out there who have a similar situation, think about how you can position your book so that it actually can help you in both areas, because it makes a lot of sense. You don't necessarily want to write two books. If you can have one book that does double duty, then that's super smart. Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so let's talk a little bit about it. And I think I know the answer to this because of the multiple conversations that we've had, but do you consider yourself to come from a faith background, or are you more of a spiritualist? And are there any spiritual experiences or synchronicities that you can attribute to publishing your book and putting yourself out there by sharing your story?
Yeah, I am a faith-based spiritual woo-woo gal. I am a curious Christian, as they put it. Like I'm like, give me the books that were written by people who were like burned at the stake. Those are the ones I'm looking up. Because I was raised in fundamentalism and left religion and discovered a relationship with source, with the creator, that I feel very connected to. And thus when synchronicities happen, it doesn't surprise me. Like finding my editor, I literally couldn't have found a better person for that moment in my life and in her life at that scenario. And it positioned me to deal with some haters, because there were some people who didn't like that I had hired this person. Because I'm the type of person that when I hire somebody or I want to work with somebody, I share them. I love collaboration and contributing to other people's success and posting. And so it allowed me to deal with this group of haters that she had, which was really interesting, and learning how to alchemize that and check in with my gut and my intuition. And my intuition still said, no, you keep working with her. Like, let's restructure our agreement based on certain things that certain information that was brought to light about this person. But I said, I still feel like this is the right person for this book.
Right.
I don't know if I would use her again, but for that season in my life and in her life, it was a very beneficial, divinely guided collaboration. And I'm so grateful for it. And that experience then allowed me to see, okay, here's it gave me the power also of community, of realizing how powerful we are together when we all come together for the love of a project. And when you lead with love, so many people are still leading from fear or from prove me energy of like, I need to get this book out to like show the world who I am. And I was like, no, I just want this book to serve people. I want this book to be able to help people have all the tools that they need. They can just either use the book or they can come work with us. But if they aren't yet financially at the place to come work with us, that's okay. They will have everything they need in this book to be able to get it done, to be able to go on the right shows. Like I wanted to make it a valuable, transformative resource for the podcast industry. And I truly believe that's why it's gone on to win multiple awards. That's why it was named one of the top books to change your life in 2024. It's won Best How-To Book by the Biba Awards for the literary awards. So I'm not surprised. I also am not surprised at the intentional positioning that I put it in. Like when your energy flows where your attention goes. And I was very intentional with the promotion of this, with leveraging and practicing what I preach. So I wasn't out of alignment or out of integrity. I was practicing what I preached. Some of the podcasts that I went on allowed me to go to New York, get it on a giant billboard, speak at a mastermind with the guy who built like the Hormozis brands. I was like, what this and all I was just talking podcast guesting about the power of what was in the book, and I leveraged that. And I think that there comes a deep spiritual power with congruence when you fully back and embody and practice what you preach in the physical realm. So it's not just some thing that's up on a pedestal. It's not theory. It's not fluff. It's not getting caught up in the emotional crap of doubt or shame or guilt. It is literally you are an open, clear channel for that action to move you forward, and you move forward in courage and in faith.
Yeah. And you make a really good point about relationships, because I've always been in the belief that relationships are here to be, a season or reason or a lifetime.
Mm-hmm.
And when you are in that alignment and that flow, you have people that show up that you're like, oh, I was looking for this kind of person or this kind of client, and they just show up because you're in alignment. And at the same time, you're also able to let go of people when you're no longer walking the same path. And it's okay. It doesn't have to be this big drama thing, right? I think that being more in alignment spiritually with people and with those relationships, I think is a really powerful thing. And that is something that I think as entrepreneurs, you have to learn how to do that, and it becomes a skill.
It becomes a skill, and it's also the standards that you choose to live by, and looking at the standards in which you communicate, the standards in which you desire to be treated, the standards that you hold for the book and for the work and for the devotion to the work and to the craft and to what you're co-creating, and the standards in which you tolerate. And if you read, I love the quote from Tony Robbins, you get what you tolerate.
Exactly.
And when you look at most people don't need to raise their ambition. They just need to raise their standards.
Exactly. And that to me is all about boundaries too, is being able to have firm boundaries. And I've talked about boundaries as being a critical part of your business and your life, because those boundaries are also part of the systems and structures that you've set up so that you can manage your time. You can manage, okay, am I spending time working? Am I spending time doing things that I love? Am I spending time with other people or family? And so those standards, I think, really become part of our deeply rooted belief system and values. And many times that has changed, right? Because our belief systems since we were children have completely changed. And I think that entrepreneurship is one of those things that really kind of opens that up and allows you to expand that.
Yeah, I think that it's when you truly tap into that innate I am power that we all have, the power of being a creator, the power of leaning into those divine gifts and those desires that I believe were placed on your heart by the divine. And when you lean into that, you are saying yes to your divine mission. You are saying yes, and thus you must have the courage to not necessarily look at circumstances, but to move forward in faith. It's kind of like that scene in Indiana Jones where you step and the rock will appear. The bridge is going to appear. That was me 100% with the book. I literally posted in a self-published authors Facebook group where I was like, hey, anyone do this? Anyone know a good editor? And I And I interviewed 3, and things always come in 3s for me. So I interviewed 3 and I found the right one for that season. And then the same was true with our fun children's book. So I have a crazy ambitious goal to launch a book a month, not a book a month. Oh my God, a book a year, a book a month. Oh my God, that is next level.
That's a lofty goal.
That would be lofty at this season of my life. At this moment, though, it's a book a year for the next 13 years because I realized I was going to be 50 in 13 years. And I was like, okay, so I'm 2 for 13 now. We launched Make Every Podcast Want You. And then I had a lot of fiction authors, because of the success of the book, coming to me and saying, I don't know if this is going to work for me, your podcasting strategy, because I'm a fiction author or I'm a children's book author. And I was like, let's test that theory.
Yeah, I was going to say, it'll totally work.
So I had written a little book when my son was just born because he was scared of his own farts, and called It's Just a Fart. And I, again, in divine timing, found the right illustrator, felt totally aligned with this person, and Amanda Swift, she's amazing. And we developed and wrote, I wrote it, she illustrated it, and it's called It's Just a Fart. And that was our second book. And so that's a whole other journey that we've been on of looking at, okay, if we're going to apply this strategy, I'm going on mompreneur podcasts. I'm going on parent gifting podcasts. I'm going on different because I can speak to it from my story of being a parent and having the baby that's scared of their farts, and that's cute. But and every parent knows that the amount of bodily function conversations that happen in the first 8 years is just exorbitant.
Yeah.
So my kids were consultants on the book, and there's something really powerful also as leveraging it as a demonstration to my kids about entrepreneurship, because they know that mommy coaches, they know that mommy wrote a book, and I saw how proud they were going around on the day of our launch with Make Every Podcast Want You. And my 3-year-old at the time, he was like, Mommy's book, it's Mommy's book. And he was going around, and my son, he saw some people in our town who had bought my book and they had it. And he's like, that's my mom. And so it's very different when they see, they know that I'm on my computer. They see that I go into my office, but having something tangible it brings it to life for them.
Yes.
And so I wanted something that was let's show them that you can make money from literally gaseous air. And launching.
Let's make money from farts.
Let's make money from farts. And so
we may have to title this episode, Let's Make Money from Farts.
From farts. Farts and podcasts.
Farts and podcasting. Let's just do it. Okay, so let me ask about intuition, because someone who comes from a spiritual belief system, right? Intuition is a big, big part of how we do our day-to-day work, right? And who we decide to work with. So tell me about a time that you used your intuition and what the result was. And maybe even tell me about a time that you didn't use your intuition and what happened.
So I've been an entrepreneur now I think it's going on 17, maybe 18 years now. Like I said, our web designer, we need to update our bio.
That's okay.
It's been a minute.
Sometimes you set it and then you leave it alone and then you're like, oh,
it's been longer.
How long has it been since that's been out there? I know. I have to do the same.
Yep. And I think the power of that is this is my 4th business. So my first business was I was a Pilates instructor for 13 years. I started out as a freelance instructor. I eventually had my own brick and mortar studio in Los Angeles. And then moved on from that into an e-commerce business. And I started Pilates just to support myself in screenwriting. I had my first feature film produced and developed, and I co-wrote it with the director, and it got picked up by Lionsgate and was on Netflix. And I saw that and I was like, I'm only 90% fulfilled. So why is there this gap?
And let me just say, okay, so your film was called Bro.
It was called Bro. It's called Bro. Most people are surprised.
If you haven't heard of
they
it,
see I wrote it.
Go check it out. Bro.
Yeah. Though it starred Danny Trejo. It's a hardcore motocross movie. So you see me now and you're like, wait, what? Yes. There's farts, there's motocross, there's podcasts, there's queendom. So
right. Because it all works together, really.
It all works together. And I think that the powerful thing is that there are only 7 stories that humans really relate to. And one of them is the story of belonging. And that's why people related to it.
Mm-hmm.
And when that film came out, I saw that it saved 4 people's lives, and I was like, "That's what I want to do. I want to do that." And I was presented with I was open to the opportunity of what could come next, and I was presented with the opportunity to come on board as a consultant for this back stretching device. And from my Pilates background, because I'd spent about 7 or 8 years by that time. Training in Pilates, teaching it. I had my brick and mortar and I saw the product. I said, that I can sell that. I know how to sell that. I know where to put that. I can get that into every chiropractic office and Pilates studio. And I know clients that would want to buy that. And I said, I don't just want to be a consultant. I want to be a president. And I remember having a conversation with my business partner, soon to be business partner. And it was before we actually signed the agreement to go into business together. And we were in business for 2 years. And after that, we had a pretty contentious buyout experience where I exited the company and got a buyout in 3 weeks before my wedding. Before I walked down the aisle, I signed the agreement and was like, bye. And then I was like, what the hell was that trauma? Lawyers they don't send you the nicest thing when you're not on their side.
Right.
So it was a really powerful learning experience. And now I've been able to leverage that experience in guiding my clients through their own buyouts and employee disputes and all that. But backtrack back to when I was young and I'm still young, but I was 25 and didn't quite know. I wasn't as spiritually in tune as I am today. And I do remember I was sitting across at Starbucks from my business partner. And we were just, he's like, well, we're going to go into business together. So I think we should kind of share about our experiences and our, just our insecurities and things like that. And he shared with me some things and my gut just literally said, orange flag. And then I said, no. There's a lot of money in this opportunity. There's a lot of potential in this opportunity. I'm sure we can work around that. I've experienced similar things in different ways, but I'd felt like orange flag. And eventually we just had very different values as far as how we did business. He was much older than I was. So he was much more old school, get the office, have the business cards and things like that. And I was much more startup and scrappy because I'm a second generation entrepreneur. And that it's a different mentality. And he'd never been a full-fledged entrepreneur, but he had been retired from his career and was had capital to start this business. And I brought in some capital and some investors. My parents, they did get a return on their investment, though. They did get a 15% return as promised. So I was very happy about that.
It doesn't matter where the money comes from, as long as you get the money and you can invest it and move.
Got the money, invested it, and they got a 15% return. I was very proud of giving them that return in that check. That was that was very worth it. But that moment of going through that buyout and 3 months of dealing with lawyers while I'm planning my wedding, it was a very hard moment where I felt like I'd failed. And it actually took me 2 years to really remedy and be like, oh my God, I had a successful exit. I had a successful exit. But I felt like I lost the company. I felt like I failed the product. I felt like I'd put 2 years of labor into something that I believed in that got taken away from me. And that was just my perception. And it was really hard to see that and to put that energy. But that was a moment where my intuition was like, orange flag. And I look back on that moment and I was like, oh, yeah, had that with my ex too. Where I got that orange flag.
And it's interesting too, because, sometimes when we look back and we think about all the things that we take on in a small span of time, and we think, how did we do that? I've had experiences like that too, where I was like, oh my gosh, I can't believe I was doing this and this and this. And it's so, you're so focused during that time that you don't think about the big picture.
Yeah.
And then you come through it and then you realize, okay, and now I have trauma around that. And so now I have to heal the trauma. And then you're like, yeah, but think about the learning experience and how that builds resiliency, when we go through those really challenging things,
100%. Now contracts, they do not faze me. I love a good contract. I can speak some legalese. I got a world-class law education.
Yes.
Within the span of a very short 3 months sprint.
I think any good entrepreneur has to have literally almost like a
Crash course.
crash course, but also kind of like a secret love of the law because
Mhm.
you're constantly dealing with it, right? And it's for me, any of my legal challenges that I've been through, and I've been through multiple of them, still standing, right? And I've won every case. Every case
Mhm.
that I've ever had, I've always won. And so that built confidence in me, but also it really makes me kind of like interested in, okay, how these things got here, right? Because
Mhm.
then it helps you make a better decision the next go around. You're gonna be like, oh, this is reeking of that other situation, and I don't want to do that again. Like
Yeah.
that's backwards movement. Let's keep this moving forward.
Yeah, and being able to have that discernment, I think that that is something that as an entrepreneur gets trained. Um, but I can definitely say, like, I have had intuitive nudges. I remember back in 2018, I had just raised my prices to $10,000 for 12 weeks of coaching. And I remember I had an application come through out of the blue, and I said, she's a client. I just intuitively knew she signed up without, and being able to have that confidence and that intuition of like, yeah, that was my first $10,000 month that was paid in cash. Like it was like I just had that intuitive nudge and knew it. And that built so much confidence in me to trust it, but also to hold on loosely. Because that's the thing is like when we have those intuitive nudges and it can like inspire, like it can bring up those things, like maybe it's egoic greed or maybe it's some like pride. It's really allowing for yourself to hold on loosely and say like, yes, if it's for me, it's going to be for me.
Exactly.
And if
And
it's not
trusting.
for me, it's full on trust. And if it's not for me, I'm so grateful that I dodged that bullet.
Right. Exactly. Yes. Okay. So as you know, I love to pull cards.
Yeah.
I think that at some point I need to do a full reading for you.
We've done this a few times. I mean, you did this on my podcast.
Right. We've just done a few cards though. So, okay, I'm going to gift you with a full reading. I'll send you a link to book it because I think it'd be just so much fun to
That'd
actually
be fun.
spend time doing a full reading. So, before our listeners, let's pull 3 cards. Is there something that is a question that you think that our listeners would want to know or get a little insight on?
I feel like the question needs to be around books. And okay. So, as you know, I have the goal of 13 books in 13 years, and I have a few books that I have I feel are the right next ones. But there's like the seminal work, like the big book that I see being published. And I think every author has that where it's like that's the New York Times bestseller, like that's the one.
Right.
And trusting in like I'm thinking of how to frame a question around it that's not like projection or base as far as like, oh, when is this going to happen for me? But more.
Should we maybe just ask what do they need to know around writing that book that is going to take them to the next level?
I think that's the right one. I think that's a solid
And then
question.
we'll look at timing too, because I do have a timing deck, which I love.
Ooh, that's fun.
Especially timing with just the interesting astrology that we have going on. So, okay, the first card out. Oh, this is very interesting. It's a 17 card. So 17, 1 plus 7 equals an 8. 8 is the number of communication, right? If you also take an 8 and you lay it on its side, it is the infinity symbol. So the card itself is the fates.
Mm-hmm.
It's hard to see on the screen, but what it shows is a woman, very spiritual looking woman, she's actually like following these stars up, and the stars represent your angels, guides, passed on loved ones, ancestors. So she's saying, I'm going to follow this path. I'm going to follow the guidance from my angels and guides because using my book to become more successful, to level up, is actually fated for me. So it's saying you need to keep moving forward and you need to really work on the communication piece. And of course, books are communication, but it's that throat chakra, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
work on that. Interesting. The next card is a 34, which is a 7. 7 is the number of the divine, God, source, creator. It also can symbolize completion of things. So the card itself is a leg up. And on the card is a picture of a polar bear, a mama polar bear with the baby cub climbing on her back. And the card being a leg up is saying that the divine is going to send you a resource, a connection, something that is going to help you make that next step, whether it's the editor that you're looking for, whether it's listening to this podcast and being like, oh, maybe I want to talk to Susie about how do I finish my damn book, right? Who knows, right? Maybe it's somebody who says, I want to develop a podcast and comes to you. But the resource will come to you and it'll just show up. Okay. And also, there are flags, this banner at the top of the page. My guides have told me that this represents past life because these banners used to appear in medieval times across markets and fairs and things like that. And so this is saying there's a past life here. This is something in each listener, there's something in a past life that has indicated that you are fated and destined to write this book, to actually take that next step. And you need to just trust the situation. We were talking about trust earlier. And also know that when the resources show up for you, you've got to take action on them. You've got to actually use them. Now, the next card is a 30 card. 3 plus 0 is 3. 3 is the number of the teacher. And the card itself is TikTok. So it's saying, hello, get your ass moving because time's a wasting. And on this card is a picture of outstretched hands with a clock. There's also a balloon attached to the clock saying when you adhere to like putting yourself on a schedule to write that book and you take the action, outstretched hands are action. This is very much like the Yang card, which is about action. It's saying when you do this, it's actually going to kind of take off and take on a life of its own. So allow yourself to set the manifestation. And it's really powerful right now, the time that we're in, even though we are in retrograde. And, in retrograde, you're going to have communication errors. You're going to have technology, travel, all those things can go wonky. And you also don't want to sign contracts necessarily during a retrograde. But it's saying you have the ability, even though we're in this weird time and energy space, to start taking small steps forward and putting this practice into place because it is fated and destined for you. And right now, the energy, although it is weird, might be a good time because the veil is very thin. And so we're getting a lot of synchronicities and a lot of messages coming through. So let's ask about timing. When is the timing right for this project? What do our listeners need to hear on this? November. So it's saying between now and November, really taking some intentional, intuitive, guided action. And maybe by November, you might have that first draft so that you can start working with an editor. So yeah, it's all, it's saying full steam ahead. Like, don't wait, like start taking action on this now. The clock is ticking, TikTok, right?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's literally October, November is pretty much consistently when we have launched every single book. It's just that's a timing for me personally. Like we launched Make Every Podcast Want You on September 30th because that's International Podcasting Day. And then It's Just a Fart we launched in November. We pre-launched it and then for a Christmas release. Release.
Yes.
and then we had and I've just felt like November, like October, November, the fall is always a season where there is like this final quarter, just harvest in essence of the work that gets put in over the course of the summer. And it's so interesting because a lot of people think like summer, vacation. And I've been very intentional with restructuring, especially since we do online school. So it's a lot easier. We build in alignment with the seasons. And my kids are a lot of times at a lot of camps during summer. So I have a lot more actual space to actually do writing, to do building, to work with my team on building out the structure and to get on like a heaps ton of podcast interviews. Like we have the Damon John Next Level CEO show is coming out in June or July. And I've already, like, in the past week, we booked probably 24 podcast interviews for myself to be going
Wow.
on, for in promo and prep to build up for the launch of this next book entities.
And what's interesting too is, we're recording this beginning of March. And so literally the 20th is the equinox. This is actually the astrological new year. So all of these cards are saying, get moving. Cracking McCracken, right? Because everybody needs to take some action and make it happen in this time that we're in. We just came into the fire horse Chinese lunar year. And so this is that time to really set your intention, start that writing practice. And I love what you said at the very beginning of this, is how you just said, I'm going to carve out, 4 days, 3 nights, and just go off somewhere and do what I need to do. Take that time if you need it, because this is important work that our listeners are doing. And so if you set the intention and you start moving forward now, you literally could have a book by November. And even if you don't have your book done and launching in the fall, which you're right, both spring and fall are great times to launch books, at least you can get maybe you're go into the editing phase, and you do that through the winter, and then you would be able to launch in spring. So that November is, I want everyone to mark it on their calendar, set some goals, set some timelines for yourself, because I think it's a powerful time that we're living in.
Ooh, 11/11.
Yeah.
Yeah.
11?
Yeah. That feels like a very aligned date for the next book to come out. To actually come out. What's interesting is I bet many of your listeners also, like me, have several half-written books in their Scrivener files or, Google Docs or whatnot. And when I was deciding on the sequence of the next books that we're going to be launching over the course of the next couple years, I had one that came. I was talking to one of my clients, actually, Whitney Joy. We helped her with her bestseller launch and in getting on podcasts and all that. And she said, "Well, Kim, if your book, Money Bulimia, which is all about the financial cycle that we go through as entrepreneurs, of we get money in and then it goes out to expenses, and suddenly so people are still living paycheck to paycheck, and that's like a seminal work that I've been working on for the past decade, and just healing my own financial bulimia, which I had.
Me too.
As well as by leveraging the principles of healing my actual bulimia that I had from the age of 11 to 22. And that she said, well, obviously your book about bulimia has to come out first, because people have to know, oh, she did this with her body, and now it's just those same principles retranslated.
Yes.
So, I already dropped the news on Damon John's show, which is going to be coming out in June there, because they asked me about Money Bulimia, and I was like, oh, okay, now I have to be committed to that.
Exactly.
But it was just but it's not a have to. It truly is a divine design. I feel especially with the changing financial order that we're going through right now, and that we will be going through until 2030. And
very, very timely. And I think that your book is going to do extremely well. You're going to end up being a bestseller multiple times over, because I think people are going to need this. They're going to need to understand how our own wounds in our lives and our childhood affect us in the financial realm. It took me a long time to heal that money stuff, a long time.
Same.
And it's a real thing. So don't be ashamed if you have money bulimia too, because we've all been there. So I know that we're getting a little short on time, but I wanted to ask you, how can people reach out to you and work with you?
If you love this episode and you want to continue the conversation, then head on over to crownyourself.com/podcast and tune into our podcast there. If you listen to Susie's episode, she was on both of our podcasts for both of my companies. If you want to learn more about how to leverage podcast guesting for your book launch, head on over to communicationqueens.com/podcast. I interview a ton of authors on their launch, and I look at their marketing strategy and how they leverage or didn't leverage podcasts, and how they could leverage them for the future. And grab a spot on our 100K Profit from Guest Podcasting call
Yeah.
at Communication Queens, and let's have a conversation around how you can leverage your book to build your business.
I love that. Do you have any last words of wisdom for our listeners?
Go write your story. Your story has the power to save at least one life, so go out there and share it.
I love that. That is just beautiful. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you so much for having me, Susie. I always love talking to you.
Yeah, we could talk for hours,
we
literally.
could literally do like a Palm Springs Girl Day and
Oh, yeah.
have a very long conversation about all things books, publishing, esoteric wisdom.
We might have to put that on the books. So, yeah. Yes. Well, thank you. And if you found this interesting, I encourage you to join me for the next episode and be sure to subscribe. Until then, keep on writing so you can finish the damn book. We'll see you next time.
You've been listening to Finish the Damn Book, hosted by Susie Schaefer. If you're serious about finishing the damn book and want to explore what that could look like for you, your next step is a conversation. You can book a consultation at finishthebookpublishing.com and find out what it would take to move your book forward.